In times past, when the papacy held sway not only over the hearts of the faithful, but also over the fates of kingdoms and nations, the rings of the popes were crafted with exquisite precision and artistry, bearing within them immense spiritual and political authority. These rings, known as the Ring of the Fisherman or the Piscatory Ring, were more than mere ornaments or symbols. They were tangible instruments for legitimizing papal decrees. Every document issued by the Pope, whether a pardon, an excommunication, or the appointment of a bishop, was sealed with this ring, becoming legally binding the moment the hot wax touched the parchment and dried, imprinting the supreme authority of the Catholic Church. Yet this very power carried great risks. In the Middle Ages, when political chaos and conflicts among noble families and ruling dynasties were common, papal authority was not immune to threats. There were tales of forged documents, stolen rings, or even rings used after a pope's death, to issue decrees that would never have seen the light of day had he still been alive. Thus, to ensure that a pope's ring could not be misused after his passing, the tradition of its destruction was born. The act itself was steeped in solemn ritual. Upon the announcement of a pope's death, the cardinals and high-ranking officials of the Roman Curia would gather, and the ring would be presented before the Camerlengo, the temporary head of the church during the sede vacante, the vacant see. Then, a silver hammer would be taken, and the ring would be struck until it was deformed or shattered, a dramatic gesture symbolizing the end of an era and the dawn of another. This was not merely the destruction of a physical object, but a clear proclamation that the authority of the deceased pope had ceased, and no one could any longer speak in his name. But why such a dramatic measure? Because history had taught the papacy a harsh lesson. In the 14th century, during a period known as the Western Schism, multiple men simultaneously claimed to be the true pope, one in Rome, another in Avignon. The chaos that ensued was so great that the faithful no longer knew who the legitimate pontiff was. Amid this turmoil, forged documents were sealed with counterfeit papal rings, further deepening the crisis. Thus, once the schism ended, the destruction of the ring after a pope's death became a necessary safeguard for the church's credibility. As the centuries passed, technology evolved, and with it, the ring's significance changed. In modern times, papal documents were no longer sealed with wax, but were instead signed or stamped with contemporary seals. Yet, the tradition of destroying the ring endured as a powerful symbol. In 1978, when Pope Paul VI died, his ring was not crushed with a silver hammer as in the past, but was instead scratched with a blade to nullify it, a sign that while modern times had changed the tools, they had not erased the symbolism. Today, the Pope's ring is no longer used to authenticate documents, but a new one is still crafted for each pontiff, engraved with his name and an image of St. Peter casting his net into the sea, a reminder of Christ's words to Peter, "From now on you will be a fisher of men." And when a pope dies, the ring is removed or defaced, not out of fear of forgery as in ancient times, but in respect for the traditions that bind the present to the past. Thus, the story of the Pope's shattered ring is not merely an obscure Vatican ritual, but a living testament to how history shapes tradition, and how traditions, even when they lose their practical function, retain meanings far deeper than their physical form. It is a reminder that all power, no matter how great, is fleeting, and that every reign, no matter how long, must one day reach its end. In an era when papal resignation was not a common occurrence, but rather a rare event bordering on the unimaginable, the matter of a resigned pope's ring emerged as an issue requiring a novel solution. The ancient tradition of destroying the ring upon death no longer sufficed when Pope Benedict XVI made his historic announcement in February 2013 to voluntarily step down. This moment became exceptional in Catholic Church history, marking the Yas Yuzara. First time in centuries, the world witnessed a pope renounce the throne of St. Peter while still living. Within the marble and gold-adorned halls of the Vatican, where centuries-old traditions intertwine with modern necessities, cardinals and senior officials gathered to deliberate the fate of that golden ring, which until recently had symbolized the highest ecclesiastical authority on earth. Benedict XVI's Fisherman's ring carried a rich history, specially crafted for his 2005 election, engraved with his name Benedict XV, and an image of St. Peter casting his nets into the sea, evoking the apostolic mission Christ bestowed upon his disciples. Custom dictated that this ring be shattered with a silver hammer immediately upon a pope's death, in a solemn ceremony marking the end of one era and dawn of another. But death had not ended Benedict XV's pontificate. Rather, a conscious decision to resign after years of service had. This raised the perplexing question: what would become of the ring now that its owner had left the papal throne while maintaining his love for the Church and its faith? In the days following the historic announcement, answers gradually emerged. As cameras captured every movement in St. Peter's Square, and journalists speculated about the papal symbol's fate, the Camerlengo and senior Roman Curia officials carefully weighed their options. No clear precedent existed since Pope Gregory XII's 1415 resignation, and even that situation differed substantially from current circumstances. After lengthy deliberations, the decision came. The ring would not be destroyed as upon death, but instead marked with a cross to nullify its legal authority. This solution balanced respect for sacred tradition with exceptional circumstances. At precisely 8 p.m. on February 28, 2013, when Benedict XV's pontificate officially ended, the ring was decommissioned in a manner preserving his dignity while affirming the transfer of authority. This was no mere ceremonial formality, but a clear message to the world that papal authority resides in the office, not the person. As Benedict XVI became Pope Emeritus, his ring could no longer validate documents or decrees. Yet unlike rings destroyed after death, Benedict's ring was preserved in Vatican archives, perhaps as testament to this unique historical moment. In subsequent weeks, as the world awaited the new pope's election, the deactivated ring rested securely, awaiting its ultimate fate. When Pope Francis was elected on March 13, 2013, a new gold-plated silver ring was crafted for him, simpler in design than predecessors, reflecting the new pope's desired spirit of humility. As for Benedict XV's ring, it remained in shadow as a memorial to a peacefully concluded pontificate. Some reports suggest it may eventually be melted down for a new ring, while others believe it will remain a Vatican Museum artifact. Regardless, this ring's fate differs from those of deceased popes. It tells a story of resignation rather than death, of peaceful power transition in an era of new challenges for the Church. This historic event reminds us that ecclesiastical traditions, despite their apparent permanence, can adapt to new realities. A Catholicism that has preserved its faith and rituals across centuries again demonstrates its capacity to find appropriate solutions even in the most exceptional circumstances. Today, as Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI lives his days at Mater Ecclesiae Monastery in the Vatican, his ring remains a silent witness to a new chapter in papal history, one written by human will rather than mortal fate. The tradition of destroying. The papal ring has undergone a profoundly significant evolution across the ages, transforming from a mere practical security measure into a complex symbolic ritual containing multiple layers of religious and political meaning. In the early Middle Ages, when the Pope's authority extended far beyond spiritual matters to encompass international politics and imperial conflicts, the fisherman's ring was an instrument of governance no less important than the sword or crown. Its destruction following a pope's death was a necessary measure to protect the Church from forgery and fraud, particularly during that turbulent period marked by bitter struggles between the papacy and the empire. As the papacy rose to prominence during the Renaissance, the ritual of destroying the ring took on new dimensions of splendor and ceremony. In the magnificent palaces of the Vatican, where great artists like Michelangelo and Raphael adorned the walls with their timeless masterpieces, the destruction of the ring became a theatrical spectacle worthy of the Church at the height of its glory. Cardinals would gather in the royal hall while the Camerlengo, dressed in silk robes embroidered with golden threads, would raise the silver hammer high before delivering the decisive blow to the ring, a dramatic moment symbolizing the transfer of power from one supreme pontiff to another. However, the Industrial Revolution and technological advancements of the 19th and 20th centuries began altering the nature of this tradition. As wax seals were replaced by ink signatures and more sophisticated anti-forgery measures emerged, the practical purpose of destroying the ring diminished somewhat. Yet the Catholic Church, with its centuries-accumulated wisdom, recognized that some traditions carry value beyond mere utility. Thus, while the hammer strikes became less violent, the underlying symbolism of the ritual grew more profound. The pivotal moment of transformation came with Pope Benedict XVI's resignation in 2013, which presented a genuine test of ecclesiastical tradition's flexibility. In the Vatican's secret archives, where Christianity's most sacred and dangerous documents are preserved, senior church officials gathered to deliberate the fate of the resigned Pope's ring. The decisions made in that historic session reflected remarkable theological and administrative brilliance. Instead of complete destruction, they chose a compromise that would invalidate the ring while preserving it as a historical artifact. Today, as Pope Francis stands on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica wearing a simple gold-plated silver ring, we witness the latest chapter in this long story. His ring, despite its simplicity, carries the same symbolism borne by papal rings throughout the centuries. As for previous rings, whether shattered or scratched, they rest in special boxes in the Vatican vaults, silent witnesses to a changing history of an enduring church. This living tradition continues to evolve, its ceremonial forms adapting while maintaining continuity with the past. The ritual destruction, or now more commonly nullification, of the papal ring remains a powerful sacramental act, visually reinforcing the Catholic understanding that the Pope's authority derives from his office rather than his person. From medieval security precaution to modern symbolic act, this practice embodies the Church's remarkable ability to preserve essential truths while adapting their expression to changing circumstances. The next evolution of this tradition may come with future technological developments or unforeseen historical circumstances, but its core purpose, marking the definitive end of a pontificate, will undoubtedly remain unchanged. In the imposing palaces of the Vatican, standing like an impregnable fortress, guarding 20 centuries of Christian history, there exist rituals as deeply rooted as ancient oak trees. When a pope breathes his last, it is not merely the golden fisherman's ring that meets its end, but rather an intricate sequence of ceremonies unfolds, resembling medieval royal funerals yet with one fundamental difference. These honor not the deceased individual, but the eternal office he held. Behind the sealed doors of the papal council chamber, where light filters only through stained glass depicting scenes from Revelation, the Camerlengo gathers with senior cardinals to execute procedures unchanged in essence since Pope Innocent III's time in the 13th century. The silver hammer used to shatter the ring is no ordinary tool but an artifact itself, its handle engraved with names of all popes whose pontificates it has terminated. Some veteran Vatican servants believe this hammer contains fragments of previous papal rings within its shaft, as if carrying the collective memory of the Apostolic See. The lead seals affixed to momentous papal documents were never mere metal discs. Their intricate designs concealed secret symbols discernible only under magnification. A legend persists among Swiss guards about a 15th century papal seal that disappeared after its owner's death, only to resurface 2 centuries later in a German noble's castle, sparking a major diplomatic crisis. Such incidents endowed the seal-breaking ritual with near-expiatory solemnity. Within the secret archives, where priceless manuscripts stand guarded behind Renaissance-era steel doors, a special iron cabinet preserves samples of every deceased Pope's official stationery. Ancient custom demanded their burning, but since Pope Leo XIII's late 19th century reign, they've been conserved as historical witnesses. One exception remains. All undistributed indulgences are incinerated in a special furnace on the night of new papal elections, a nocturnal rite attended only by the Camerlengo and 3 deacons. The papal apartments transform into time capsules after their occupants' passing. Every furnishing, book, even personal tableware remains under strict guard until catalogued. A curious tale surrounds Pope Pius XIII's desk, which concealed a secret compartment discovered years posthumously, containing his handwritten geopolitical predictions for Europe. Such discoveries prompted the Vatican to develop elaborate archival protocols for papal estates. Beneath Santa Maria della Vittoria Church lies a secure vault known to few senior officials. Its walls display metal dies for papal coinage. Upon a pope's death, the mint master destroys each die bearing his insignia under a special press, while a cardinal recites Latin prayers. The grinding metal allegedly resembles the sound of tearing parchment. Some conclave traditions evolved unpredictably. Renaissance-era popes' personal chess sets were destroyed as potential state secret repositories. Today, every papal email is preserved on the Vatican's ultra-secure servers. When a pope dies, his official account is deactivated through coding rituals strikingly similar to ancient seal-breaking ceremonies. In a secluded Vatican garden corner stands a small 16th-century brick furnace that has consumed thousands of papal documents. Elderly workers claim its flames changed color according to the deceased pope: blue for Benedict, red for Pius, green for John Paul. They consider this phenomenon a minor miracle, though scientists attribute it to period-specific inks and paper. These rituals resemble Egyptian mummification, but focus more on erasing administrative traces than preserving physical remains. They demonstrate profound understanding of power that outlives its wielders, a sacred flame passing between hands. Each hammer strike, broken seal, and burned document ultimately affirms the Church as an entity transcending individuals, even ones as monumental as popes. The ceremonies continue evolving, yet their core remains, ensuring the seamless transition of spiritual authority that has guided believers for 2 millennia. Within the imposing Vatican palaces that stand as an impregnable fortress, guarding 20 centuries of Christian history, the responsibility for destroying the papal ring falls upon a unique figure bearing the title of Camerlengo. This man overnight becomes the most powerful person in the Catholic Church during that critical period between 2 popes. It is a monumental task inherited through generations of men, each adding his own wisdom and experience, transforming it from mere ceremony into sacred drama that holds the threads of spiritual authority over more than 1 billion faithful worldwide. The Camerlengo, or Chamberlain of the Holy Roman Church, is no ordinary official in the Roman Curia. He is the guardian of ancient traditions and a temporary authority that in some aspects surpasses even that of the Pope himself during the interregnum. The origins of this position trace back to the 11th century when popes ruled both spiritual and temporal empires across Europe, creating an urgent need for someone to ensure governmental continuity during transitions. But the office truly transformed during the Renaissance, when the Camerlengo became primarily responsible for organizing the conclave and electing the new pope. At the moment of a pope's confirmed death, the Camerlengo transitions from background figure to center stage. An ancient tradition preserved by veteran Vatican servants dictates that the Camerlengo must be the first to touch the deceased pope's body with his left pinky finger, a symbolic gesture representing the transfer of authority from the dead to the living. Then comes the solemn spectacle in the papal hall, where cardinals gather in purple mourning vestments as the Camerlengo raises the silver hammer used exclusively for this occasion, delivering the decisive blow to the papal ring. Yet the responsibilities extend far beyond breaking the ring. The Camerlengo must also seal the papal apartments with his personal seal and inventory all documents and personal belongings of the deceased pontiff. A peculiar story circulates about Camerlengo Giuseppe Bertello during Pope Leo XIII's reign, who discovered a secret map hidden in a wall showing locations of lost church treasures in ancient Rome. Such incidents have made the Camerlengo's office one requiring absolute trust, filled only by those possessing exceptional wisdom and rare political acumen. During the Middle Ages, when conflicts over the papal throne sometimes turned violent, the Camerlengo bore the additional duty of protecting the deceased pope's body from desecration or theft. Historical documents recount how Camerlengo Urbano Codero in 1521 stood guard over Pope Leo X's corpse armed only with his personal sword, after rumors spread that opposition groups planned to steal the pope's heart for magical rituals. In modern times, some details have changed, but the essence remains. Today's Camerlengo faces no physical threats, but confronts different challenges in this age of technology and transparency. When Pope Benedict XVI resigned in 2013, Camerlengo Tarcisio Bertone had to manage unprecedented procedures, including deactivating the resigning pope's digital accounts while handling the papal ring in a way that preserved the dignity of the office while acknowledging exceptional circumstances. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Camerlengo story is the absolute secrecy surrounding his work. During the transition, he becomes the Vatican's master of information, privy to secrets even cardinals might not know. A hidden chamber in the Vatican admits only the Camerlengo during sede vacante, containing all sensitive documents related to the papal transition. Some insiders believe this room also holds copies of secret testaments from popes of recent centuries. The Pai. Camerlengo's role doesn't end with the new pope's election. After white smoke from the Sistine Chapel chimney announces the selection, the Camerlengo must formally transfer authority through elaborate ceremonies. When the new pope sits on the confessional chair in St. Peter's Basilica to don papal vestments for the first time, the Camerlengo is the last to kiss his hand before the new pontificate begins, symbolizing the transfer of responsibility from temporary guardian to permanent ruler. The traditions surrounding the Camerlengo's destruction of the papal ring remind us that the Catholic Church, despite centuries of change, maintains living connections to its past. Each time the Camerlengo raises the silver hammer to break the deceased pope's ring, he doesn't just end an era, but reaffirms the institution's immortality, greater than any individual, even the pope himself. These rituals, preserved through turbulent centuries, continue to bridge the ancient and modern worlds in their solemn pageantry. In the sacred halls of the Vatican, where golden candlelight flickers across ancient walls carved with the names of popes who have passed through the gates of history, an unprecedented event occurred on that fateful day in February 2013. What transpired was not merely a modification of the ritual destruction of the papal ring, but rather a fundamental transformation in the very understanding of papal authority itself. When Pope Benedict XVI announced his resignation from the papal throne, the Church found itself facing a profound theological and historical dilemma: how to handle the supreme symbol of authority when its bearer still lived. The silver hammer, that traditionally shattered the fisherman's ring upon a pope's death, hung suspended in mid-air during those decisive moments. Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, the Camerlengo and guardian of papal traditions, stood perplexed before Benedict XVI's golden ring, custom dictated delivering a final blow that would permanently terminate the ring's authority. But this time was different. The Pope had not died. He had voluntarily chosen to leave the Apostolic See. This moment bore striking resemblance to other pivotal historical junctures that changed the Church's course, like Pope Leo III's coronation of Charlemagne as emperor in 800, or Pope Urban II's declaration of the Crusades at Clermont. Within the Vatican's secret council chambers, where the wisest theological minds in Christendom gather, heated debates ensued about the ring's fate. Some tradition-bound cardinals insisted on shattering the ring as had been done for centuries, while others argued this exceptional situation demanded an exceptional solution. The issue transcended mere ritual. It became a genuine test of the Church's ability to adapt to new circumstances without compromising the sanctity of its traditions. The Vatican's secret archives preserve detailed accounts of these days-long deliberations. A confidential document by German Cardinal Joachim Meissner reveals how Pope Benedict XVI himself provided decisive input. He proposed deactivating the ring without destroying it, allowing it to remain as testimony to this unique moment in ecclesiastical history. The resigning pope's suggestion carried profound wisdom, preserving the papal office's dignity while recognizing that a 21st century church couldn't approach symbols exactly as it had in the Middle Ages. The final decision became a meeting point between old and new. 2 crossed grooves would be engraved on the ring's face, replacing the traditional silver hammer's destruction. These crosses carried deep theological significance, the first representing the end of Benedict XVI's active pontificate, the second symbolizing the uninterrupted continuity of the Apostolic See. Thus, the ring transformed from instrument of authority to museum piece, from living symbol to historical artifact. Interestingly, this ritual modification wasn't unprecedented in papal history, though it was certainly the most famous. During the Renaissance, when Pope Gregory X resigned in 1415 to end the Western Schism, a similar decision spared his ring from destruction. But the crucial difference lay in context. Gregory's resignation addressed a major ecclesiastical crisis, while Benedict's stemmed from personal recognition of his aging and declining health. Today in Vatican museums, visitors can observe the differences between various papal rings. Some, like Pius XIII's, are completely shattered, others, like John Paul II's, remain intact, but Benedict XVI's ring bears those distinctive marks, making it truly unique. Historians view this ring as testament to the Catholic Church's flexibility and ability to adapt without losing its essence. The 2013 change represented more than procedural adjustment. It redefined the nature of papal symbols for our modern era. In the past, ring destruction reflected an ancient concept of indivisible authority, Today, in a world of more flexible power structures and interpretable traditions, the Church needed new ways to express papal transition while respecting a resigning pope's dignity. This story reminds us that great traditions aren't rigid rituals but living entities that evolve. Catholicism, having preserved its faith across centuries, again demonstrates its capacity to embrace necessary change without severing ties to its glorious past. Benedict XVI's ring, engraved with 2 crosses, will endure as living witness to this truth for generations to come, a silent sentinel testifying to the Church's timeless ability to harmonize tradition with progress. In the hushed chambers of the Vatican, where candlelight flickers across walls bearing witness to centuries of history, the story of the resigned Pope's ring stands as testament to one of the most extraordinary chapters in ecclesiastical annals. That golden ring adorned with St. Peter casting his nets into the sea was never mere ornamentation, but a living symbol of authority tracing its lineage to Christ's very words. "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." On that chilly February evening in 2013, as the world held its breath awaiting the fate of the Apostolic See, the Camerlengo gathered with senior cardinals in a secret chamber near the Sistine Chapel. Upon a table of ancient Lebanese cedar wood, rested Pope Benedict XVI's Fisherman's ring, its surface gleaming under the solemn gaze of assembled princes of the Church. The air thrummed with sacred tension. Never since Gregory the White's 1415 resignation had the Church faced such a moment. The traditional silver hammer used to shatter papal rings after death remained untouched on its shelf. In its place, attendants brought forth a small silver file engraved with 2 intersecting crosses. With deliberate reverence, the Camerlengo himself scored the dual crosses into the ring's surface, each stroke heavy with theological meaning. The first cross marked the cessation of papal authority, the second symbolized the unbroken continuity of Peter's chair. This ritual bore striking resemblance to medieval practices for deconsecrating sacred vessels, yet with crucial distinction. The ring remained physically intact, though spiritually discharged. This decision emerged not from haste, but after weeks of deliberation among the Church's foremost theologians and historians. The Vatican's secret archives preserve detailed accounts of these debates, revealing how traditionalists like Cardinal Raymond Burke argued for complete destruction, while progressives like Cardinal Walter Casper advocated solutions honoring both office and living former pope. Most remarkably, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI himself reportedly suggested the 2-cross solution, demonstrating profound pastoral wisdom in preserving the dignity of both his successor and his new emeritus status. Following the nullification ceremony, the ring was placed in an olive wood casket carved with papal insignia, not melted down as customary after death, but enshrined in the Vatican's climate-controlled archives alongside Christendom's most precious relics. History's irony manifests in how this scratched ring gained greater significance than shattered predecessors. While other papal rings were absorbed into history's crucible, Benedict's became a unique museum piece. When exhibited in 2017 to commemorate Pope Francis's election anniversary, visitors crowded around it with awed fascination. Ecclesiastical tradition teaches that symbols derive power from meaning more than form. Though legally voided by those 2 crosses, Benedict's ring gained new historical and theological value, transformed from governance tool to living witness of Catholicism's ability to adapt without compromising essence. Future papal resignations will follow this precedent, making February 2013 not merely crisis resolution, but the birth of new tradition in an ancient Church that masterfully balances immutable principles with evolving practice. Ultimately, the resigned Pope's ring endures as a milestone in the Church's journey, reminding us that true authority resides not in material symbols, but in living faith that renews itself across ages while remaining anchored to divine origins. Like Peter's nets still gathering souls after 2 millennia, these crossed grooves continue speaking across time about the nature of spiritual power and its earthly manifestations. In the sacred halls of the Vatican, where golden candlelight flows, over ancient walls engraved with the names of popes who have passed through the gates of history, the destruction of the papal ring becomes a pivotal moment in ecclesiastical history, a holy ritual reflecting profound philosophy about the nature of spiritual authority and its relationship with time. That golden ring adorning the Supreme Pontiff's finger is no mere precious ornament, but a physical embodiment of doctrine rooted in the gospel itself, where Christ told Peter, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." At the moment when a pope's departure is confirmed, whether by death or resignation, the ring transforms from an instrument of governance to a witness of earthly authority's transience. The camerlengo, guardian of papal traditions, raises the silver hammer used exclusively for this occasion, the same hammer employed since Pope Paul III's time in the 16th century. Each strike carries historical echoes dating back to the Middle Ages, when the Church faced dangers of forgery during transitions between pontiffs. This ritual is no mere security measure, as some might think, but a theological celebration in the truest sense. When the ring shatters, the entire Church witnesses a fundamental truth of Catholic doctrine. That authority belongs not to the person, but to the office. The broken ring reminds all that the Pope, despite his greatness, is merely the Church's servant, not its master. This profound understanding is what has enabled the Church to withstand history's storms, from great schisms to modern revolutions. In rare cases of resignation like Pope Benedict XVI's, the ritual takes on greater complexity. Instead of complete destruction, 2 crosses are engraved on the ring's surface. These crosses are not mere marks but expressions of the delicate balance between change and continuity. The first cross declares the end of the papal ministry, while the second affirms the enduring nature of the Roman See. It embodies the same principle expressed by St. Paul in his letter to the Hebrews. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Ecclesiastical history preserves fascinating stories about papal rings' fates. The ring of Pope Pius VII, imprisoned by Napoleon, was secretly destroyed by a loyal cardinal fearing the French emperor might misuse it. Pope Pius V's ring, who led the Church through World War II, was melted to make his successor's ring, signifying the Church's continuity even in darkest times. Theologians see this ritual as embodying the principle of the Church must always be reformed. As popes die and resign but the Church remains, so must believers continually renew their faith. St. Augustine wrote in the 5th century that the Church is Christ extended through time, and the papal ritual translates this idea into tangible action. In the modern era, where temporal powers have grown more complex, these rituals gain new depth. When the world watched in February 2013 as Benedict XV's ring was marked with 2 crosses, the message was clear. Even the Church's highest authority submits to God's will. The scratched ring became a contemporary icon of Christian humility, where a man at the center of power chooses to step aside when he can no longer bear the responsibility. The Vatican museums now preserve some shattered rings as witnesses to changing history within a steadfast Church. Each deformed gold piece tells a story about spiritual leaders' humanity and the divinity of the institution they serve. Visitors contemplating these artifacts can touch the truth expressed by Pope John XXIII at Vatican II. The Church is not a museum of antiquities, but the Lord's living garden. Ultimately, the destruction of the papal ring remains more than an ancient tradition. It is a celebration of human weakness transformed into true power, a testimony to faith declaring that the keys given to Peter still work after 2,000 years, not because the Church's foundation stones are unbreakable, but because the Spirit preserving them is stronger than all history's storms. Through this ritual, the Church visibly enacts its deepest conviction, that all earthly authority, even that of Peter's successor, exists only to serve what is eternal and unchanging. In the ancient halls of the Vatican, where golden candlelight flows over walls engraved with the names of popes throughout the ages, lie the secrets of the ritual destruction of the papal ring, a sacred tradition passed down through generations. Yet ecclesiastical history preserves rare exceptions to these ancient customs, each telling a unique story of how the Church responded to extraordinary circumstances. In 1415, when Pope Gregory XV abdicated to end the Western Schism, the Church faced an unprecedented dilemma. The papal ring of that era was not destroyed as customary, but mysteriously disappeared, only to resurface years later in a remote Italian monastery. Some historians believe the cardinals intentionally preserved it as a symbol of reconciliation after the dark period of division, while others maintain it was simply lost in the chaos of those turbulent times. The 19th century witnessed another remarkable exception when Napoleon Bonaparte imprisoned Pope Pius VII in 1809. During those dark days of French occupation, the Camerlengo secretly hid the captive pope's ring beneath the floor of St. Peter's Basilica. For 5 years, the ring remained concealed while Napoleon forged papal documents with counterfeit seals. Upon Pius VII's eventual release, he recovered his ring and continued using it until death, a striking departure from established tradition. Modern times brought their own exceptions. In 1978, following Pope John Paul III's sudden death after just 33 days in office, the Vatican refrained from the traditional destruction of his ring. Instead, 2 faint crossed lines were lightly engraved on its surface, as if the Church wished to express grief at losing a pontiff so quickly. The ring preserved in Vatican museums today still bears these visible marks, testifying to the shortest modern papacy. The most controversial exception occurred in February 2013 when Pope Benedict XVI became the first pontiff in centuries to resign. Facing this historic moment, the Camerlengo hesitated before the golden ring, recognizing the traditional hammer strike would be inappropriate for a living pope. After extensive consultation with theologians, a compromise emerged, engraving 2 deep crosses rather than shattering the ring. These crosses represented the delicate balance between terminating papal authority while respecting the emeritus pope's dignity. The Church also confronted unusual situations with anti-pope's rings. During the Great Schism, several counterfeit EIO rings circulated through Europe. Some were secretly confiscated and melted, while others disappeared mysteriously. One such ring ended up in a German noble's private collection, remaining unidentified for 2 centuries before being returned to the Vatican as a historic gesture of reconciliation. In a secure vault beneath the Vatican Library, a lead box contains fragments of papal rings damaged during turbulent periods. Some pieces date to the Middle Ages, when rings were sometimes stolen from papal corpses before the Camerlengo could perform the ritual. One account tells of Pope Alexander VI's ring nearly being stolen during his funeral, saved only by a Swiss guard's last-minute intervention. In our digital age, as rings no longer authenticate documents, some cardinals question maintaining the destruction ritual. Yet the Church insists on preserving this tradition, not for practical necessity, but for its profound symbolism. Each shattered ring reminds the Church and world that true authority transcends individuals, passing like a sacred flame between generations. These historical exceptions, however rare, prove the Catholic Church's ability to adapt while preserving tradition's essence. The papal ring, whether destroyed or preserved, ultimately remains merely a symbol of greater authority, a consolation deriving not from earthly gold, but from faith that endures through centuries. The exceptions themselves become part of the tradition, testifying to the Church's living continuity amid historical change. Each variation in the ritual's observance, whether from resignation, persecution, or extraordinary circumstance, writes new meaning into an ancient practice while affirming its enduring purpose, to mark with sacred solemnity the transition of spiritual authority from one successor of Peter to the next. In the sacred halls of the Vatican, where golden candlelight flows over ancient walls engraved with the names of popes who have passed through history's gates, lies one of the Church's greatest secrets: the mystery of the papal fisherman's ring. This modest golden disc, humble in size yet immense in significance, is far more than mere adornment for the Supreme Pontiff's hand. It stands as a living witness to an unbroken continuity stretching from Peter the Apostle, the first bishop of Rome, to his successors who have shepherded Christ's flock across the centuries. The fisherman's ring, with its simple depiction of St. Peter casting his nets into the Sea of Galilee, carries profound theological meaning rooted in Matthew's Gospel when Christ told Peter, "I will make you fishers of men." These words that transformed the life of the simple Galilean fisherman became an eternal mandate for every occupant of the chair of Peter, a perpetual reminder that their primary mission is to draw souls from the sea of sin to the shore of grace. The engraved image often includes the keys of heaven, symbolizing the power to bind and loose, thus embodying the dual nature of papal ministry, the call to evangelize and the authority to lead. Through the Church's long history, this ring evolved from an official seal into a living icon of papal authority. During the Middle Ages, when papal temporal power contended with European emperors, the ring played a pivotal role in authenticating documents. Every letter, decree, or episcopal appointment required the ring's impression in red wax, an indisputable mark of authenticity. In those days, destroying the ring after a pope's death wasn't mere ritual, but a vital security measure to prevent forgery during the precarious interregnum. The ceremonies surrounding this ring tell a compelling story about the Church's understanding of authority. When a pope's death is confirmed, the Camerlengo, guardian of papal traditions, takes the silver hammer to shatter the ring. This strike isn't simply the end of an era, but a theological declaration that papal authority isn't personal property, but a sacred trust passed to successors. The hammer's resounding blow echoes through Vatican corridors like the voice of divine truth transcending individuals and time. Yet the papal ring wasn't always just an administrative tool or power symbol. During the Renaissance, when papal temporal authority peaked, the ring became a masterpiece worthy of its wearer's grandeur. Popes like Julius II and Leo X commissioned rings of pure gold, precious gems, and intricate designs that reflected their status as princes of Rome. Yet even in this opulence, the basic image of Peter the Fisherman remained, a perpetual reminder that before all earthly glory, the Pope is first servant of a higher calling. The 20th century saw a radical transformation in the ring's significance. After Pope Paul VI abolished wax seals in official documents in 1969, the ring lost its practical function but retained deep symbolic meaning. It transitioned from governance tool to spiritual icon, from administrative seal to living connection, with apostolic roots. Pope John Paul II regarded his ring not merely as an authority symbol, but as spiritual communion with Peter, the rock upon whom Christ built his church. When Pope Benedict XVI announced his resignation in February 2013, the Church faced new questions about the ring's fate. Tradition was clear regarding death, but not for this rare resignation. Their solution was theologically brilliant. Instead of destruction, 2 crosses were engraved. The first cross marked the papacy's end. The second affirmed the see's continuity, preserving the emeritus pope's dignity while confirming the transfer of authority. Today, Vatican museums display papal rings from different eras, some shattered like Pius XIII's, some intact like John Paul II's, and Benedict XV's with its 2 engraved crosses. Each tells a chapter of the Church's story, its triumphs and trials, its spiritual strength and human weaknesses. But all point to that simple Galilean fisherman chosen by Christ to be the rock of his church. Ultimately, the fisherman's ring isn't just gold or symbol of power. It's physical expression of a great mystery, the Church's continuity through time. When each new pope receives this ring, he inherits not jewelry, but a 2,000-year-old mandate first given on Galilee's shores, when a carpenter told a fisherman, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." The ring's circle, unbroken, like the Church itself, continues to turn through history, carrying Peter's mission into every new age. In the vast halls of the Vatican, where the breath of history mingles with theological whispers, lies one of Christianity's most sacred and secretive rituals, the destruction of the papal fisherman's ring. What might appear to casual observers as mere ceremonial formality is in fact a meticulously crafted system, refined over centuries, to safeguard the legitimate transition of papal authority. Since the days of Pope Innocent III in the 13th century, the Church has understood that ensuring the integrity of this ritual means protecting the continuity of spiritual power built by Christ upon the rock of faith. When a pope's passing, whether by death or rare resignation, is confirmed, the Vatican's administrative and spiritual machinery moves with Swiss clock precision. The Camerlengo, often a shadowy figure during a pope's reign, suddenly emerges into the spotlight to lead one of Catholicism's most sensitive tasks. In his hands rests the key to the iron chamber where the papal ring is kept within a cedarwood casket inlaid with ivory. The same wood tradition holds was used for Christ's cross. This casket requires 2 keys to open, one held by the Camerlengo and the other by the Swiss Guard commander, symbolizing the dual nature of papal authority, spiritual and temporal. The ritual itself unfolds in the papal council chamber, beneath ceiling frescoes depicting scenes from Revelation, where the Church's highest officials gather. Witnesses include not only cardinals but senior Roman Curia officials, a notary, and even an official photographer documenting every movement, word, and breath in this room with precision. These multi-layered safeguards against future doubt are recorded in secret Vatican archives that won't see light for at least a century. The destruction hammer itself carries profound history. This silver mallet is no ordinary tool but an artifact, with some specimens dating to the Renaissance when Florentine master craftsmen created them exclusively for the Vatican. Each bears the coat of arms of the commissioning pope. Originally given as mementos to presiding Camerlenghi, Pope Pius XI, early in the 20th century, decreed they remain church property to prevent sacred relics becoming collectibles. The breaking follows strict protocol. The ring rests on a white Carrara marble anvil, stone from the same quarries that built St. Peter's Basilica. The Camerlengo delivers 3 symbolic strikes, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The fragments then go to the Papal mint for melting in a special crucible, though occasionally pieces are preserved as historical relics, as with Pope John Paul I's brief 33-day reign. Modern protections now intertwine with ancient rites. Surveillance cameras, biometric verification of participants, even metallurgical analysis of rings pre- and post-destruction work alongside time-honored rituals in unique harmony. For resignations like Benedict XVI's, the ritual transforms with equal solemnity. Instead of a hammer, a pure silver blade engraves 2 crosses under magnified scrutiny by the Vatican's master engraver, observed intently by the Camerlengo and 3 cardinals. The scratched ring isn't melted but stored in a silk-lined vault, awaiting potential museum display. The Vatican knows outsiders might consider these measures excessive, but history has taught painful lessons. During the 14th century Western Schism, rumors of a forged papal ring fueled decades of conflict between Rome and Avignon. An 18th century Italian noble's attempt to sell what he claimed was Pope Clement XIV's ring caused scandal that nearly shattered the Holy See's reputation. Today, after centuries of accumulated wisdom, the papal ring's destruction stands as a model of administrative and spiritual perfection, not merely security protocol or religious rite, but a meeting point between heaven and earth, past and future, temporary human authority and eternal divine mission. With each shattered ring, the Church reaffirms its ability to protect its spiritual heritage through wisdom and resolve, preserving the unbroken line stretching back to Christ's charge to Peter, "Upon this rock I will build my church."